Welcome everyone to the Modern Day Mystic Show. I am the hostess and co-host. Actually, I am the co-host. Peter is
Donna,
the
we're
host.
live.
Well, folks, we're in for a serious treat today, as you can see. We're getting started a little bit late, so we're going to jump right into this. I want to get Erich Hunter on. Let me tell you just a little bit about him and what we're going to do tonight. So, a little bit about Erich Hunter. I am the hostess. There we go. Sorry.
Just wanted to emphasize that.
I
I think
I
you made a little
didn't
power
mute.
play here.
I know, I did not mute.
7 months of doing the show, and you think you would get that one right, huh?
Apparently not. I did not mute YouTube. All right. So, again, welcome everyone to the MDM show. We've got an incredible guest on the show tonight. Erich Hunter is with us. Dr. Erich Hunter is with us. And Erich is going to show us pendulums and how to use it. So a little bit about Erich. Let me just tell you a little bit about him. Dr. Hunter has studied and practiced many spiritual energy healing modalities. He learned pendulum healing and found that using the pendulum was a much more effective and fun way for him to carry out his healing work. Over time, he has developed his own methods and theoretical foundation for pendulum healing, and now he teaches his innovative methods to students from around the world. And tonight, he's going to teach us as well. And we'll get one of you on here, and we'll do some work with you. Of course, Peter is the host, and Peter will be doing some activations as well. So let's get started. Let's get it turned over to Erich. Erich, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, Donna. Thanks for having me here, and hello to everyone in the audience, and thank you, Peter.
Eric, how are you? I'm
Yeah,
chopped
great.
liver, by the way. It's from Donna to you, and I was gonna say, go and look pretty. Go, hi guys. Eric, it's a real honor to have you on the MDM show. I'm
you.
a big fan of pendulum technology. I've had people work with me on it before in the past, and it's been very, very successful in what they've done. But I mean, clearly you have a book out on it, and you've taken it to a whole new level. So over to you. Please explain to the world what you do.
Yeah, of course. A lot of people are familiar with pendulums, and people use them all the time. And most of the time when people have a pendulum, it's like a crystal pendulum. And I'll show you. I have one of them right here, kind of like a demo. And so, you get, and this is a fancy one. So a lot of people have like a crystal pendulum of some kind, and they'll douse. They'll ask for questions. They'll say like, show me a yes or show me a no. Or they might have a chart where like they might have several things on the chart that they want to know the answer to, like maybe different types of foods that they could eat or different types of vitamins they might need to take or something like that. And then they would douse the chart to see where the pendulum goes on the chart to try to get an answer to a question that they might have. And when people do this, some people think it's their subconscious mind that's operating the pendulum, and other people think of it as like a spiritual entity maybe helping them, or maybe God or some other non-physical being is assisting them with the pendulum. And that's the way it's typically done. So when people hear pendulum healing, the first thing they think of is, oh, you're going to douse the chart and you're going to, try to find the answer to my problem. But what I do is totally different, and not many people do what I'm doing. And what I do is I actually use the pendulum as a tool. It's a healing tool, and it helps me transmit my intentions, like my thoughts. But then the pendulum itself has its own energetic properties that affect the person to assist with healing, but also to assist in other areas. So the book that I just recently published, The Circling the Square of Life, I talk about it for healing, but I also talk about it using it for financial abundance, for relationships, how to improve relationships with others and yourself, and then also for self-expression. So it's an interesting tool, and the way I use it is not what's typically thought of as pendulum work. It's like kind of a totally different method.
So can you give us a little bit of the background of how this technology came into being, how long has it been around, what the different types of pendulums, because I heard there's a difference between silver and gold pendulums versus, something like stainless steel.
Right. Okay. Sure. So the history, what I'm doing doesn't go back very far in time. Oh yeah, there are some nice pendulums right there.
No, Donna, we don't want chicken feet on the
And,
show.
yeah, here's my newest one. This is the Hunter Healer. It's actually a custom model of mine. Anyway, I'll talk about that more later. But to answer your question, so what I'm doing has not really been around for that long. It was popularized in the 20th century by some gentlemen who were in France, and there were several people who were like sort of a fringe scientist types who were studying pendulums in France because the French had gone into Egypt, and there was kind of this Egyptomania phase going on where they were obsessed with everything about Egyptian culture, and there was like a New Age movement that was very strong at that time in the 1920s, 1930s. And so these gentlemen, they noticed that in the archaeology sites that the Egyptian mummies would have these things called Waj amulets that were like on the mummy, and they were shaped like pendulums. And so they thought, well, we wonder if these pendulums have energetic properties. And so they started studying the pendulums, and they felt like they had discovered like a system where they could determine based on the shape of the pendulum the properties that it would have. And then one of the properties that they discovered was that thoughts could be transmitted using energies from the pendulum. And then they also discovered that the pendulums could do things like mummify foods. They could also be used for healing purposes. And so they started to experiment with this.
So you could use it on a cheeseburger from McDonald's?
Yeah, and save it in the pyramid, I guess, for months. No,
it's called the Bionic Burger.
The Bionic Burger. No, what you could do with the pendulum is you could impart like subtle energy qualities into that cheeseburger to neutralize any pain or suffering that the animal felt while it was, being grown, or when it was slaughtered, or to restore vital energies to the meat or the bread. But that's another topic. So to make a long story longer, the French guys inspired this man named Joseph Bage, and he was from Poland, and he was in Auschwitz concentration camp, and he used dowsing to find water, like a very traditional way to use the pendulum. And he was one of the prisoners, and he had to use the pendulum to find water just to survive, because they told him, like, you find us water in the camp or else we're going to execute you. And so he was able to do this, and then he started developing the pendulum as a healing tool. And he worked on this. Now he's now deceased, but I found one of his students, a lady named Brigitte Schmidt, and I initially learned a lot of the techniques that I know from her. But then I subsequently, after working with her methods for a while, I started developing my own methods and started bringing in information from other sources, because I've studied like shamanism, I've studied energy healing, I've studied all kinds of different healing modalities, and so I try to incorporate what works into like this pendulum system. And so at this point, there's the most similar, like the lineage is from this Joseph Bage, Brigitte Schmidt to me, but then I've elaborated and changed the system that I learned from her to sort of make it my own. Does that answer your question there?
Yeah. I'm just curious. Like, I mean, to me, in terms of what I do, it all comes from the same place, and it just seems to me that you're in a very almost like the Wild West. It's almost like you reference to the Egyptians. It's kind of like clearly they knew a lot about technologies that have been lost for a very long time. But it almost seems, too, that the pendulum is a new evolving technology. You can use it for a lot of different things, a lot of untapped different things. Because I'm watching you energetically right now, and each
Yeah.
time you hold one up, your third eye just lights up like a light bulb, and it's very,
Cool.
very cool.
I better all yeah. That's cool. Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree with you because like that's something I tell the students who take my class and anyone who contacts me on Facebook or email. I say, you know, I really want you to make this your own. Like, take what works from this and explore it, play with it, try different things. Don't think of me as the guru or the master or whatever.
Why
Like,
not? I like to
well,
reference myself as that.
I'm trying to encourage people because, like you said, it's it's like an open area. There's so many cool things. Like I make cool discoveries every day that kind of blow my mind when I'm doing this work, and it's very exciting. And I think it does draw in a lot of people who may have had past lives in like Atlantis or something like that. But at its core, this is very spiritual pendulum work. It's also very dealing with energies. So it's really, in a way, it's not different from other healing modalities, but it is at the same time, and
What's the
it definitely
difference
has its own flavor.
between the way a pendulum moves and the way energy moves through a Ouija board?
Oh, good, yeah. With a Ouija board, you're calling upon a spirit or whatever to give you an answer and guide you. When I do pendulum work, I will pray and call upon like maybe a god or an angel or something like that. But I do not allow any kind of entity to control me. I would ask them for assistance for the highest good of myself and the person being healed, but I would never rely on those forces to do the work for me per se, like, with the Ouija board, like if you're just calling in some random entity or something. So when I've been doing my spiritual practice for a while, I know who is working with me. I can trust these spiritual entities, these gods, goddesses, spirits of nature, spiritual teachers, beings who are all on the side of good. And I'll ask them to assist me with the healing, but also my intention is involved. So I'll have a goal. So I'll set an intention at the beginning of the healing. The person will give me information about what's going on with them. And then before I do a healing, I'll center myself, I'll pray, I'll make sure I'm in a good state. And then I'll use that information that was given to me to help guide me through the healing. And then I use it to create intentions and to sort of set the stage for the healing process to occur for that person. But I do couch it in terms of only if it's in their highest good, or only if it's going to be for, for their good. I don't want to force things either. So there is a spiritual component, but I think the Ouija board, it's way out of control. Like you could just randomly get some noxious entity contacting you and saying all kinds of things, and it's not really how this works at all. Although there is a spiritual component to it.
So
With that said, you could completely not be spiritual, and this will still work.
So you wouldn't recommend a Ouija board to cure a cheeseburger from?
No, well, maybe if you, because maybe the cheeseburger is so far gone, the McDonald's cheeseburger is not even real food. So maybe the Ouija board, maybe the ghosts would like it, or it would help them or something. I don't know, but.
So do you have So you obviously have different gods that you work with when you're healing somebody or you're doing abundance. Which is your favorite?
Yeah, it's a good idea. I really work with this for a long time trying to figure out, because I mean, ironically, I was brought up as an atheist, and for a long time I was in mainstream science where everyone is like a militant atheist. And that's where I got my PhD, was in the sciences. I studied biology. And I don't believe in like the old man in the sky, but I do believe in like a divine force. Like I have had a near-death experience where I witnessed the Godhead, and so I feel like there is a higher force, a higher power, and I sort of am a little bit fluid with the names that I use. So when I pray, I'll often say, "Dear God," but meaning like a spiritual force or an entity that's sort of everything, like the source of everything. Like I think of reality as being kind of a crystallized version of God. So like God is the totality, and then on Earth everything is separate. There are trees, there are molecules, there are atoms, there are subatomic particles, and they all have a duality. But it all comes from a source. So that's how I think of like the Godhead. So when I pray, I'll often say like divine beloved or God. But I also recognize other spiritual entities that are out there. So when I do my prayer, I'll be like, to the supreme God, to all the gods and goddesses, all of the angels, all the spirits of nature, all of the beings, my spiritual teacher, and all the beings who are on the side of good. And I just, sort of couch it like that. And I think the way that you can be safe when doing spiritual work is never get involved with any sort of God or entity that requires you to do anything for it, other than occasionally just pray and just be loving towards other people and be helpful. Because all of the negative entities, all the black magic entities, everything, like when you read Renaissance magic, the sorcerer, the wizard always has to bind the entity and get a contract with it. And that's when there's a serious problem, because you get tricked and you'll be dealing with black magic and all that. And I never do that at all.
So Merlin was a bad guy?
Merlin was on the edge, yes. Now, interestingly, when Tolkien wrote the Lord of the Rings series, he studied Merlin and he studied all the wizards from the past, and he created a new character with Gandalf that did not meddle in the black arts. So Gandalf, what he does is he teaches the people of the Middle Earth and all those creatures and beings and things, he teaches them how to take care of themselves, and he tries to help them a little bit, but he doesn't do a lot of magic for them. But Merlin was dabbling in the black arts, tricking, Arthur's mother, and doing all those things like that. So, yeah, there is a dark side to Merlin. And traditionally, that's what a lot of healers, like shamans and things, do have a dark side. That's always been a part of shamanism. But my healing practice does not do that. I deal totally with the light, totally with helping people, trying to be compassionate and loving, and to teach other people how to heal, so that the healing can spread. I'm rambling here, but there's a great book. The author's a little controversial, but it's called The Education of Little Tree, and there's a quote in there where he talks about how a little act of goodness can just spread around the world, and you never know where it's going to go. So I try to do good deeds and help other people, and just hopefully that it will spread around.
So I want to try something.
Sure.
I want to combine a pendulum session with the focused power of the Source 4 with water.
Okay.
I'm asking you for ideas on how we can do that.
Sure. I would need a clarification of your intention. So,
this is where it gets a little bit complicated, because the Source 4 is not intent specific. It's manifestation of reality.
Okay.
So I want to do a blanket of both technologies combined for the entire audience, and I'm asking you. I can come up with a really good one. We've done some really good ones in the past, like abundance is a great one. Clearing blockages is another good one, but I want to go a little bit beyond that and pull some of your ideas.
Sure. So all I need to do is, while you're doing that, I just need to hold my pendulum in the air, and then it will start to spin around, and it will magnify all of those intentions of that Source 4.
Manifestation.
And we can do a manifestation if you want, or I've been doing a lot with emotional healing lately, because it's a big one for a lot of people. Like, they have all these underlying emotions.
All right, so
blocking them.
All right, cool. Well, you keep talking, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the Source 4 quickly on a new subset pattern for emotional clearing for everybody, and then when you're ready, let's check out that new Hunter one that you just held up, and let's blanket everybody with that. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, sure. So do you want me to do that? Show you a few different pendulums right now while you're setting it up? Or?
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. That's cool.
So let me just. So I just brought 3. I have a very large collection of pendulums. Here is a crystal pendulum, and while this pendulum looks very beautiful, and it's a gorgeous pendulum, and it works wonderfully for dowsing, which is just getting answers to questions, the energy on it is horrible. When I hold it over my hand, it feels like a burning, searing pain almost. And not all.
You know why, don't you?
Wait, what was that?
You know why?
Why?
Take a look at it. light and energy can enter in a certain pattern and get scattered and come out in different forms. That's why it feels like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, great observation. I have other crystal pendulums that are a little different than this one, and some of them work okay and some don't. So a lot of people contact me and they say like, well, can I just use my crystal pendulum? And what I say to them is, you know, experiment with it, give it a try, and if it seems to be effective for you, then you can continue. But otherwise, please consider getting a traditional healing pendulum. You'll more than likely get better results. And I'll show you just a very standard healing pendulum. It's made of brass. This is called an Isis pendulum. This was, it's been around since the 1930s, and this is inspired, not truly Egyptian, but inspired by Egyptians. And it is shaped like the Ankh, the tree of life. There's like a little head here where the circle would be, and this would be the arm of the cross, and then this is the body. And it has these little battery-like structures that go down. And this is a very good type of healing pendulum. Works really well, and a lot of people who do healing will have it. And you can get one of these very inexpensively online. They sell them. You can order them from specialty retailers, but they also have them in places like eBay and Amazon.com. So you can find one pretty easily. And this is a pretty standard healing pendulum. It works well. All right, now the one that I've been developing here, this combines the Egyptian designs. Like, so you'll notice that like this Isis pendulum, it has the little rings going around it. But then it also has elements of two other types of Egyptian pendulums, the Osiris pendulum, which has like bowls on the top, and then the Karnak pendulum, which has this shape that's kind of pointed and round. And this pendulum is made of wood. And lately I've been really getting into wooden pendulums for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is that wood has its own energetic properties, which are really good for healing. Yeah, there's a nice wooden pendulum down there too that Donna has. And so the wooden pendulum, you know, you think of a tree. The tree connects heaven to earth, so it's grounded, but it has its roots, its branches up in the sky, so it's a conduit between the ethereal and the terrestrial realms. And then you have a lot of symbology with the tree. So there's a lot of healing metaphors like the tree of life, and then there's wood in Chinese medicine. But then also this particular pendulum is made from a tree called cocos wood, and this tree is very good for fixing nitrogen in very poor soil. So the tree restores the soil to health. And so there's an idea from medieval alchemy called the doctrine of signatures, where the properties of a plant can dictate its healing potential. So when I was working with the company La Fortuna Pendulums to design this pendulum, you know, that particular tree is a really good tree for a healing pendulum because the tree itself in nature restores barren soil back to health. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with healing. Now, not that the person is barren, but when you become sick or ill, your body gets depleted and it needs energy. So this pendulum, according to that doctrine of signatures, would be, you know, this type of pendulum with this wood would be good because it has a function in nature that's similar to what we're trying to do here. Just stop me if you have a question. I've just been rolling here. Now, when you have a pendulum like this, let's see, I'll hold it back a little bit. Can you see the pendulum clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're doing it, what will happen is you'll give the pendulum a command, and then the pendulum will start to spin around in circles. And if it spins to the right, that means it's adding in energies, and when it goes the other way to the left, it's taking them out. So clockwise is going to be adding in, and then counterclockwise is going to be removing out.
Now,
so yeah.
Is there a certain way that you hold it?
Yes.
Depending on doing different things besides just dangling it between your index and your thumb?
Yes, so first off, when you hold the pendulum, always grab any extra string and put it in the palm of your hand. And then you'll grab it like that with your index finger and your thumb. And then there are several things you can do. If you're doing a distance healing on somebody, you can take an index card and just write their name on the index card. And then you can connect the person to the card. And when we do the healing on the air, I'll show you how to do that. Then you can hold the pendulum over the card and then let it do its thing. And while the pendulum is working, it will spin in circles, but then once it's completed, it just goes side to side like this. And that's how you know it's done. If you're working with a person who's right in front of you, you can put it over their solar plexus, like right below their rib cage, or you can put it over the part of their body that's in pain or that's not doing well, and then it will just spin around until it's finished. And even if you don't have a command that you're trying to do, if you just hold one of these healing pendulums over somebody and just start letting it spin, they'll feel the energy coming in. The body will take what it needs. But then if you have a command or a psychic, a form, a thought form, it will also transmit it. So that will add even more like potency to the whole process.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so I have the Source 4 set up.
Oh, great.
Okay, and I'm going to share my screen out in a minute. And I'll let you kick it off. And when you kick it off, I'm going to press the Enter the Source 4 button. And again, this is a combo of Pendulum technology and the Source 4 technology to remove emotional blockages from people or to change their reality via manifesting, an emotional-free reality. Did I say that right, Donna?
Well, we want to have some emotions. We don't want them all to be gone.
Well, we don't want mindless robots in the world.
The audience is like, oh.
All right, so
all these people, they're all like vegetables now.
All right, I'm going to share over the screen now.
Okay. Tell me when I should begin.
Hang on 1 second. Okay, here we go. Cool. Can you guys? Okay, cool. All right, so I'll count. You go ahead and kick it off, Eric, and then I'll explain exactly. Everyone's just going to need a glass of water for this because we're going to consciously direct the manifestation into the water. The Source 4 will run for 40-something seconds. I'll explain the parts that it's running through. And again, if you're not catching the show live, these pre-recorded the pre-recorded shows are as strong as when we're doing it, if not stronger on the recording in some cases. Okay, you ready, Eric?
Yeah.
I'll let you kick it off, and then I'm going to enter the Source 4. And
Okay,
again,
so,
I'm sorry.
okay.
The only thing that is required of the user during this, we're going to call it an experiment, so, is just to put where your attention goes, the manifestation will go. The only thing that's required of the user is just put your attention on the water. Okay, let's kick it off, Eric.
Okay. So just really quickly, to the Supreme God, to all the gods, to all the spirits of nature, to all spiritual beings on the side of good, to my spiritual teacher, I humbly invoke for your divine guidance, your divine wisdom, your divine protection, your divine blessing during this healing and activation. And I thank you for making sure that's in the highest good for myself and for all concerned. All right, so we're going to begin here. And
entering the Source 4 now.
Great.
Where your attention goes, the manifestation goes. We're running water preparation. We are removing the energies from the water, memories. We're now running user preparation, creating a thin veil in the water.
The pendulum changed direction. It's interesting.
We are now pre-nucleating the water. We're setting the light paths in the water. Look at that, now it's going side to side. Now we are nucleating the water. Yeah, it's interesting, Eric, to watch the energy fly around you when this is happening. I'll go into that in a minute.
Cool.
Source 4 runs for 18.1 seconds. And that should be it. But that pendulum, man, it's like the Energizer Bunny keeps going around in a circle.
Yeah, it's done now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a 2-second delay, folks. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and...
Oh, can we drink our water?
Yeah, now you can. The
Cool.
pendulum does so.
Yeah, I've never had a clairvoyant watch me while doing this, so I'll be really interested to hear what you say.
Well, it was interesting because when you started meditating and getting your mind set up, you opened up a field to suck in all the energy around you. And as soon as you kicked the pendulum off, it just started flowing out of you. And it was really very high vibe and very cool to watch.
Oh, cool.
But what the pendulum was doing was really interesting because it was going clockwise when we kicked it off. But as soon as it went into user preparation, which creates a thin veil in the water, and when people drink it, it goes right to the subconscious mind. It opens it up for acceptance. It started going counterclockwise. And then when it started setting the light paths, it started going side to side. And then when it started nucleating, it started going clockwise again. That was just, I don't know what the hell it was doing, but that was pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I had no idea about the mechanics of the process, so like it was pretty much moving on its own. Now, granted, my hand probably was subtly shifting or something, but I wasn't really planning any of those movements, and they just kind of happened. Like I was kind of surprised when it started going the other way, and then it kind of balanced out, and it started doing it. It was cool.
Can you explain the movements and what the counterclockwise means, clockwise, and then side to side again, please?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest way to think about this is just imagine that you're looking at like an old-fashioned clock on the wall, not a digital clock, but if for those of you who are older than like 30 years old, you might remember those clocks that had hands on them that would move around. So you just look at one of those, you just imagine you're looking at that, or you can just take your right hand, and then just imagine making a circle going in the direction of the right. Like you're drawing a circle, like if you start at the top, you're going around to the right. That's clockwise relative to you. And then so when you're holding the pendulum, it will go to the right if it's adding in energies. Then if it's taking away energies, like you're trying to remove something, it will spin counterclockwise. It will go to the left. So if you take your hand again and have a pen on a piece of paper and you draw a circle, but you face towards your left while you're drawing the circle, that would be counterclockwise. Now when the pendulum is done, now when you're doing a healing, it will go in different directions. Like sometimes it will go clockwise, sometimes it will go counterclockwise. But you'll know that the whole process is finished when it goes side to side like that. And then you know that you're done and you can move on to the next stage of what you're doing.
But what was interesting, though, and I want to explore a little bit with you, is why it started going counterclockwise on the user preparation part of the source 4. And I just find it very interesting because the user preparation is a big key part in the technology and how subconscious mind and
you're breaking up a
opens
little
it up
bit.
For, in your opinion, why do you think the pendulum was going counterclockwise while we were doing the experiment?
What's coming to me right now, and just tell me if this makes sense, is that it may have been sort of clearing the field a little bit, like preparing people, or maybe removing some energies that weren't needed.
Okay, cool.
That's sort of what intuitively came to my mind. Like it was kind of like maybe the people, like maybe the initial part of the activation started like bringing up some energies that were not going to be beneficial for the process, and then so it just went that way to remove them, to get rid of them, and then it balanced itself out, and then it started helping you by spinning the other way.
You think it could have been doing that too, because we're dealing with so many people on the live call right now that maybe, you know, in their minds, whatever their manifestation for clearing emotional energy could have had, you know, I've never seen this before, so it's to me it's very interesting. You know, we work with a lot of people on these shows, and when the particular people in whatever field they're in do things, I generally comment on the energy. But what was really interesting with you was right before you started sucking it in. It was almost like creating a black hole, and it just exploded out when the pendulum started going. And then of course the source 4 energy is always crazy. When you put that into water. Donna, do we got any questions from anybody?
You know we do. So Chico is in the chat, folks. And again, let me just remind everyone watching that this is the perfect time. Please do not miss out on getting your questions answered. Folks, get in the chat. We ask this every week, and then you guys wait until the very last minute. So get in here with us, and let's get these questions answered. So Chico says, she says, I read a book by Hannah Kruger about 10 years ago using Pendulum. I have a car key on a string. So Eric, this is what she's using for a pendulum.
Okay.
A car key on a string. I use it to check food quality, answer directional questions and such. Never heard of the energy uses. Cool.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Most people have never heard of this way of using a pendulum. There's a few people, more people know now because of my books that I have out there, and the class I've been teaching, and Facebook interacting with people and doing healings and stuff. But yeah, most people, when they think of pendulums, they just think of answering questions. And a key would work great for that. But for this kind of work, the key would not. It more than likely would be. It would be much harder to achieve the same results with a key than you would with this thing. So you know, you could still do it. I mean, but it would just be more difficult, and you may not get as consistent results. It wouldn't be working with you; it'd be kind of working against you a little bit.
So then Chico needs a traditional type pendulum, something more than a key.
Yes, I mean, I would recommend that. I mean, she can try it with the key and see how it works. But if it doesn't work well, you can, you don't have to necessarily buy one either. You can make your own. If you get a piece of, like, if you get like an end thing from a lamp, it will often be shaped kind of like this. Like you screw it on the tip of a lamp on the top. You can find, you can take a piece of wood and carve it. I had this one student who's in Pakistan, and it's difficult to get. You can't just order pendulums off the internet there. So he actually carves his own wooden pendulums, and they work great. But then he also has a friend who helps him build them out of brass. That's another story. But you can make your own pendulums, and so you don't necessarily have to buy one, but there are certain shapes that are better than others. So if you're going to make your own, try to copy an established shape if possible. But if you can't, just experiment. Just try different things. Yeah, those two there are two shapes that are good, that work. Yeah. Most pendulums, if they're made of brass or wood, and they have like kind of discs on them, or they have kind of a shape like this bottom piece here, like even if that was just alone, that would be a good shape for a pendulum.
So they really are needing kind of like that point going down type thing.
Yes, it helps focus your energy to send it in one direction, rather than dispersing it everywhere, like with a crystal. Like Peter pointed out, it was just like whoosh, all those energies just going in different directions, and stuff's coming in from all over too.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, great comment there. Any
Which
other
one?
questions? Oh, all of them. They're all great. We rock. We're awesome. No, just kidding.
So that's what I have so far.
Okay.
I've been in Facebook posting as well. So
Okay,
let me.
cool.
I'll do a quick sweep there. But so far, that's what we have.
Can you, Eric, can you dive a little bit more into the history of the pendulum again?
Yeah,
just
sure.
pick up where you left off.
Yeah, sure. So basically, it was France, 1920s, 1930s. These guys were Chamry and Belzal, and these others were experimenting. It got picked up by a few people, and then I learned it from this one person from Germany. And then I sort of developed my own methods based on what I learned from those original sources and from her. But then, now I did discover independently that there was an American guy named Raymond Grace, who's amazing pendulum magician, healer, and he's kind of like a cowboy, and he has his own methods that he developed independently that are very similar in a lot of ways to what I'm doing. He uses a bullet for a pendulum, a 45 caliber bullet, and he says pendulums don't matter, like their shapes don't matter and any of that stuff, but it's interesting to note that his pendulum is almost exactly like an Egyptian pendulum. The shape of a 45 caliber bullet is an Egyptian pendulum, basically. So it produces the correct radiesthetic color, the correct healing color. So it actually would be quite a good pendulum to use if you were going to pick an object from the world that's non-spiritual. Although he says that he uses that because he's very independent. But yeah, so there's not a lot of history behind it. It's relatively new field. There's lots of discoveries to be made, lots of exciting things you can do, and literally you can write history doing this work. I have students making amazing discoveries all the time, and they share them on the Facebook groups I've created. So I have a pendulum healing radiesthesia Facebook group, and then for my classes, I make a private Facebook group for the students to interact with each other. And yeah, the students are just discovering amazing things every day. You can make a major discovery in this area because it's right on the edge of like quantum physics, spirituality, healing, magic, all sorts of things, like all intersect in this pendulum healing arena. In my new book, I talk a lot about these really cool scientific experiments using intention that most people don't know about. There are peer-reviewed, published studies where these guys, William Browd and his colleagues, they demonstrated all kinds of cool things where people were able to use their minds to basically change reality in a laboratory, and it was objective and quantifiable. And so this kind of work, this pendulum healing, it doesn't have really a broad history, but it's very relevant for our times because it also deals with consciousness, which is one of the big questions that it's sort of the elephant in the room of materialistic science is consciousness. And the scientists are saying, oh yeah, it's all in our brains, it's just some chemicals in your head, blah, blah, blah. But they're ignoring this ever-growing mountain of evidence and experimental data and stuff that's starting to imply there's way more to consciousness and reality than the materialist paradigm is saying is it. So yeah.
Let's shift focus here. So you were an atheist. You have a PhD in biology, meaning everything was science to you. What shifted you into this field?
That's a great question. Now, when I was young, my household was atheist. My parents never even took me to church or anything, and they were very intellectual. I lived near New York City, and it was kind of the New York City intellectual. My dad's an artist, and my mom is a librarian and history teacher, and they're both highly educated people. And I come from like a pretty highly educated family. And so in that environment, there really was not much spirituality or interest. There's always kind of poo-pooed, like, oh, those people are crazy and all this kind of stuff. And it didn't really make sense to me, mainstream religion, when I would see it. It just didn't ring, a bell with me. But I did have some very odd experiences when I was young. Like there was a ghost in my house that I was aware of, but no one else was, and it was pretty terrifying when I was a child. And I would have some kind of like odd experiences. I was always kind of different than other people. I was really into nature. I loved animals and plants and going out in nature. So what happened was the science path was to give me an excuse to not have to get a mainstream job, like to be a banker or something. I was like, I'm going to use my love of nature. I was always studying nature, collecting animals, looking at frogs and snakes and bugs and things like that. And then I realized, like, hey, I could study nature and make a living, and I don't have to become a banker and just commute every day on the train or whatever. So I started that, and then that was in high school, and then it developed into a passion, and I went to Cornell University, and I studied biology there. And then when I left Cornell, I got into graduate school, and I was studying evolution, systematics. And while I was there, I had a spiritual awakening of sorts where I started to see through the veil. I started to realize that the materialist paradigm of the world was not the whole answer, and that there was more to reality and more to life than what I was being told or what I thought previously. And as a scientist, I have an open mind. I like to check things. I like to test them for myself. I'm not dogmatic. I don't want to just believe anything that people tell me. I want to do experiments. I want to test things. So I started making observations about reality that were totally different than what is supposed to be true. And I started saying, well, wait, why doesn't science consider this? This doesn't make any sense to me because it's something that can be observed, it can be tested. Why are scientists being so closed-minded about this? This is not scientific. So it sort of has grown from my natural curiosity of nature and how the world works. And so I kind of led a dual life. When I was in graduate school, during the day I'd be in the lab, and even at night. But then when I left there, I was like, so in the day I was a scientist, at night I was this highly spiritual, metaphysical person involved with all these spiritual groups and everything, but I never told anyone that. And And after, so I carried this on for a long time, and then I went into education. I was teaching for a long time, and so I had like my professional life and my private life, and then finally 3 years ago, I decided that it was time to either, to fish or cut bait, as they say. I was like, I got to do this. So I decided the spiritual life is the most important thing for me. I'm gonna pursue this. I'm gonna find a way to do this so I can really embody the spiritual path and to truly, live what I believe I was born to do, which is to, be a spiritual being and having a human existence, and it's sort of manifested as me doing healing and helping people. And that's sort of how it came about.
Well, that's pretty cool. You have another question, and I think this one, I'm sorry. I was going to say we have a question, but I think it needs to go to both of you individually.
Okay. Sure.
And so Allie is in the chat. And Allie wants to know, what is your protocol to clear houses with entities? So I want to ask both of you that same question. What are both of y'all's processes? What's your protocol?
Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, so I want to start by saying if you are aware that there is an entity in your house and you are not someone who does this regularly, please be very careful doing this, because the entity can wreak all kinds of havoc in your life. So what I generally do is there are several things going on. One thing is that there's some kind of funky energy field going on in the house. There's either like there's a disruption in the energy field, or there's something going on with the energetics of the house that's allowing that entity to exist. It could be that somebody brought it in, or that somebody has like sent it at you like a hex or a curse, or it could just be some weird thing about the geology of the land, or maybe something really traumatic happened in the household that created like sort of a rift in the energy that's allowing this thing to manifest. It could also be coming from a neighbor or a neighbor's house. I've seen cases where like the neighbors were doing really weird stuff, and it leaks out and it kind of goes around the neighborhood. Or if you're like in a hollow or something where energy from the surrounding land and energies can come down like a hill or something like that, your house is at the bottom of the hill, all this stuff can just kind of pour in. So one thing you can do right away is you can put up like little talismans like on your doors. So like if you have a little icon like a cross or whatever, or a little Virgin Mary or something like that, you can just put on all the doors, or a feather or something that's meaningful, and that will kind of keep things from coming in the doors. You can kind of block that way. You can also do energetic healing on the house using the pendulum. I can't go into all of it here because it would be too involved, but basically you'd want to try to fix the energy of the home, and you would also want to call upon spiritual allies and protectors to help protect your house. I have some very powerful connections with the god Shiva. I studied in Bali, Indonesia with a teacher when I was there. Living there, and he connected me with Shiva, and so if people have negative entities on them or in their home, whatever, I can call upon the entity of the god Shiva to protect the property, and it will do that, and I've done that. Recently, someone was having a problem with an entity bothering them. They just Facebook messaged me, and I wrote back, okay, I'll do a healing for you, and they said, oh, don't worry, it already left. So it's pretty powerful. But yeah, so just to summarize, you have to sort of protect the house. There are different ways you can do that. One way I recommend is put little talismans on all the doors, on the handle of the door. That way you'll protect things from coming in. Do some kind of energy clearing or energetic healing on the home and on the land. And also get professional help. There are lots of people who are good at this. If you've never done this before and you're just an amateur trying to dabble in it, I don't recommend that. Find myself or someone who knows how to do this and who's had a lot of experience with it to help you to do that. That's kind of like where I'm at with it.
That's pretty cool. So can I ask something before I get to you, Peter? Eric, so along with that question, as you were talking, my mind is spinning out of control, and I wanted to know, as a follow-up to Allie's question, so with entities, is there something about us? Would there be something about Allie, and Allie, I'm going to use you as an example, Would there be something about Allie attracting the energy? Would it be something about us? If I have an entity in my house, is it something about me that's attracting the energy?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it is. Like if you're involved with some kind of occult practice or something, like you're using the Ouija board like we talked about earlier, then yeah, it could be you bringing it in. But it could, like I said, like I just was dealing with one case, and it was the neighbors. They had these heinous neighbors who were doing these really bizarre things that just all these weird energies were just flowing out of their house to all the surrounding houses. So it had nothing to do with the people in the home that I was helping. It was coming from the neighbor's home. So you have to do healing work on the source. So like in that case, like you do healing for the house next door and the people in that house. Try to heal them emotionally. Try to heal them spiritually. Using distance healing, but not to interfere with their free will, but for the highest good of all concerned. Because they may need to go through something. They may need to have these entities for whatever reason in this lifetime. But the person who I was trying to help, they didn't want that and they didn't need it. So yeah, but it's not necessarily. It can be if you do certain practices, or do certain things, like But it doesn't necessarily mean that she's drawing it in. Great question.
What was that question again, Donna? I got lost.
Okay, so my question, two parts, Peter. Starting with Allie, what is your protocol to clear houses with entities?
Okay, let's just focus on that. Clearly, Aquaware can do it. It has an entity removal intent. People have been very successful at it. I just recommend you charge a spray bottle, spray it around the house, it's gone. Personally, my thoughts, my experiences dictate a way different way of doing it. I don't believe in good or evil. I don't believe in light versus dark. I believe in levels of vibration. Every energy in existence has purpose, whatever it is. And through all of my travels, I have always learned that honoring an energy is the highest form of acknowledgement that you can give it, simply by saying, I honor the space in which you exist. Boom. There's no chicken feet involved. There's no holding hands and singing Kumbaya. There's nothing involved. I always clear space before I walk into an area I haven't been, simply by putting my attention on it. And anything that vibrates lower than I do can't exist in my presence. Like, so here's a great example. You have a room that is pitch black, right? There's no windows, no doors. What happens when you turn a light on? The darkness is gone. The darkness cannot exist within the light. But if you have a room that's filled with bright light, can darkness exist? Absolutely not. So in my reality, in my opinion, light can always exist without the darkness, but the darkness can never exist without the light, hence the levels of vibration. I keep myself open to everything, and in doing so, I allow everything to transverse me. If it's of a lower vibration, some people might call it an evil spirit, it's not allowed around me. So when I walk into a new space, I just project myself into that space, and anything that vibrates at a lower level is gone. Humans complicate everything. We just always have. And understanding, Eric, you can agree with this, the quantum part of reality, consciousness especially, that there is no, it's just your thoughts are everything. So again, in my opinion, there's no complicated method to clearing anything. Your will is your way. You consciously project yourself somewhere, but you vibrate at that higher level. The lower vibe things just cannot exist. What was the second part to that, Donna?
So the second part was my part, and I was asking if there's an entity or something, is that person, am I bringing it in? And when I hear you talk about, sounds like it has to be your reality for it to come in.
Your reality is filled with energy, okay? And a lot of, the work I do one-on-one with people, it's all obviously done remotely over the phone. Sometimes I Skype, depending where in the world they are, and I see the energy in them. Now, these energies come from different places, right? There's an infinite amount of realities that rage around us all the time, okay? Infinite. And these energies that transverse these different realities are very much predatorial, like a shark. They're incredibly smart, different than the way we perceive reality, and they want to, they get attracted to you, and they want to nestle somewhere inside your body. Over the course of your lifetime, you have a lot of emotional energy from really high peaks and tragic stuff that can happen in your life, and that energy nestles inside your body, and over time it hardens, and it'll wreak havoc on the body, mind, and spirit. And that translates into the physical plane as a whole host of human ailments, right? Bipolar, depression. You go to a psychiatrist, you go to a doctor, a healer, a seeker, a shaman. They deal with what I call the attachment. That's what manifests on the physical surface. They give you a pill, they'll do some work on you, they'll make you feel better for a little while, but that doesn't resolve the root cause, and the root cause is what I play with. And because I choose to walk in those higher realms, in those higher vibes, the energies that the lady was talking about and Eric was talking about, they can't exist in my reality. So when someone says to me, well, how do you clear a house? I do it with thought. I project myself into that house. I am the center of that reality, and that comes in like a singularity and pushes anything else that's not at that vibrational level out all the time. That's like when someone uses Aquaware, the source, whatever. The programs are such a high vibration that as soon as you open it up, you feel that connection with it. If there's anything in your immediate surroundings that's of a lower vibe, it's gone. It's just the way it is. And that's the way I think, and it's just the way it is. And some people might call that cocky or arrogant or whatever, but the technology I've developed has helped a lot of people out of a lot of situations. So, that energy, the entity, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. It's just energy and it exists in your reality, and you can always push it out by consciously directing yourself into the middle of it. It's your reality. If you allow it to affect you, it will. And that can go two ways. That can go very, very positive or very, very negative. Now remember, low vibe energy. Yeah, so you have source, right? That's in my opinion, in my reality. Source is the creation of everything. We're all energy. We're all connected to it. The first ring outside of source is the archangels, and as you transverse further outside of these rings from source, the lower something vibrates, right? You might call it evil. I've done exorcisms on people, performed exorcisms on people, and it's just low vibe energy. To me, everything is energy. It's not good, it's not bad, it's a level of vibration, and I choose to vibrate in the higher realms. And when you do, the lower forms of vibration have a choice. They either go away or they choose to bring themselves back towards the light. And when you honor the space of that negativity by simply saying, I honor the space in which you exist, that's the highest form of attainment. And generally, more times than not, they are going to transmute themselves to the higher realms, and they will help you. Did that confuse you or help you, Donna? You're on mute, kid.
No, cool. Interesting.
Donna?
Yeah, Donna?
Okay, let me get there. I have so many windows open that I have to get back to where I am. No, that was absolutely amazing. I felt a workshop coming out of that, just so you know. Anyhow, no, I think what you were saying is absolutely extremely amazing and important, and I'm like, boom, right here with you, and all that. And I like that empowering of, I honor the space in which you exist. So when you were saying that, and again for both of you, here's my other question is, I honor the space in which you exist. Now, if there's something negative, nasty feeling, that low vibe.
Donna, Let's do an experiment. Close your eyes.
Peter?
No,
Okay.
close your eyes.
All right.
Let me know when you start to feel the creepiest, scummy energy start to infiltrate your spine, because it's coming.
Oh,
And it's
no.
big and it's dark.
Okay, I don't want to do that.
No, you're going to do it because I want to prove a point to you.
All right.
Just close your eyes, breathe through your nose, and let me know when it starts. It's already moving up your back.
Okay.
You feel it?
Yep. I feel the energy.
Pretty sick, isn't it? Is it making your skin start to move yet?
Yeah.
Is it making the hair stand up on your arm? It's disgusting, isn't it? Now, Donna, pay attention. Put your attention on it and repeat the words, I honor the space in which you exist. Out loud.
I honor the space in which you exist.
What happened?
Yeah. I feel the energy. I feel it going down. I feel the calming.
Point and case made. You can create, when you vibrate at higher levels, you can create negativity at the speed of thought.
Right.
That energy that just came to you, I invited it into your space for an experiment. Okay? And as I purposely guided it to your lower back and up your spine so you could feel it, because that's a very sensitive part, especially with you. And as it moves up your spine, you start to feel that energy that you're not used to. And as soon as you put your attention on it and you honor its space, that's the highest form of acknowledgement you can give these energies. They don't know that they're low vibe. They don't know anything. They just want to play.
Right.
And when you play with them, they'll do anything for you. You can use them for healing. You can use them for whatever you want. And Eric, you're not binding yourself to them. You're just acknowledging them. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really similar to the idea in Carlos Castaneda's work about the, I forgot the name of their call, but these energy beings that are just terrifying, but then the sorcerer has to learn to see them as just energy, and when you do that, they won't, they're not going to kill you or whatever. But until you get to that point, they're pretty damn scary. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Intention is really important, and also where you put your energy and where you think about it. And yeah, I mean, I've had a few experiences with some things that were pretty powerful, and yeah, so, but I generally agree with what you're saying. My approach is a little different. It may be a little more anthropomorphic sort of approach to it, but I don't think there's a fundamental disagreement, because when I'm doing the pendulum work, we're like putting energies into the space, and then those gods that I'm talking about, like Shiva, they have a morphogenetic field around them of energies, of positive energies, whatever, that will sort of raise the vibe of the area. The idea of honoring everything is good. I'm totally of support of that. So, but I'm thinking back, in some of the cases I've dealt with, like I did help one person who was dying of E. coli poisoning, and they had it was a negative entity that was causing it, and the doctors had pretty much given up on this person, and the family has asked me to help, and but I ended up using a sword to drive off the energy, but it wasn't. I didn't kill it, I just drove it off, and then the person got better immediately. So I don't know, it's a slightly different approach, but I was informed from this work more from shamanism, coming from the background, but it's interesting your different perspective there on that, and I honor that perspective, and it's interesting food for thought. I'll consider some variations in techniques based on that. Thanks for sharing.
But Eric, look at the similarities. You are a pioneer in your field. You are going places that people have not gone before. You're teaching technology to people to make the world a better place. I just do it very differently.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
You know,
cool.
You're a prime example, and a lot of people that we have on this show, it's always the same thing. They come from a really good educational background where maybe they were religious or not in your case, and then they had this awakening experience, and all of a sudden everything shifted, and they're getting downloads of information, and they're pioneering so many unbelievable ways that just go against the grain of everything that we've been taught. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, and I liked hearing your perspective on things. It was pretty interesting. It was cool.
Donna, we got any more questions in there?
Yeah, we do. So I'm in Facebook, and I just want to acknowledge some folks out there. I want to thank all those that are watching, and I posting in some of the new Facebook or in the groups. So Ms. Bradford, I want to say, let's all say hello to her. But anyhow, you do have a question, and it is on your Facebook page, Peter. Okay, so Julia was on the show when, so I'm going to take you back just a little bit, with when we had Bob Wonder on the show, and we talked about relationships. And so Eric, and then here's something for you as well. I'm going to throw questions at both of you guys. She wants to know about relationships. She says you gave her a definite time period of meeting a man, 12 days, which it could have been September 11th, but no one as of yet. Do you think something can be done with Source 4 and Erich's Pendulum? She is wanting a relationship, and I was hoping Julia would have gave me a little bit more to work with, but she's waiting for this man. He has not shown up, and I'm paraphrasing for her. Wants to know, what are your suggestions, Peter and Erich? And by using your technology, is there anything? Do we need to clear the space? Does she need to clear the space?
Erich, I'll let you run with that one.
Okay, sure. So I actually have a whole process around relationships, and I see like several different components to that. And one of them is that you have to be ready for the relationship. So you have to do your own inner work. And sometimes, you know, especially if you're like, you know, a spiritual person or you're an evolving person, you know, it's not going to cut it anymore just to go to the bar or whatever. You've got to find a different way. And I don't think it's a matter of like searching as much as it is calling it into you. And what I mean by that is you energetically shifting yourself so that you become basically a magnet, so you will create the circumstance where this right person will come into your life, and you will interact with them, and you'll recognize that, and they'll recognize you. And so that's how I see the general processes occurring. It's not a matter of like doing anything in the external world as much as it is doing your internal work to prepare yourself energetically to attract this person who is the right match for you where you're at. And there are several, like, you know, pragmatic things you can do around that seem very simple and almost ridiculous, but they could make a difference. Like if you're a single person and your bed only has one night table on it, like on your side, put a night table on the other side and a pillow on the other side to invite that person in. Maybe have like a his or her toothbrush in the bathroom, even though there's no him there yet. Even though that seems like kind of ridiculous almost, it's like you're kind of energetically opening up the space for a person to come in. The other thing you can do is you can do healing on any unresolved issues you may have. So you may have some unresolved emotional issues or something with your parents, your father, let's say, if in the case of a woman wanting to attract a male. And maybe there's something that needs to be healed there. And so, you know, using the pendulum work, you can heal those things, and then that will change your state. Yeah, those are some. So the basic idea there is that you do some kinds of self-healing to kind of help yourself out. You also energetically sort of create space for this person to come into your life, and you realize it's an inside job. It's not going to happen out there. And like I said, in the Circling the Square course that I do, I have like a whole process where I discuss different things that you can do, different steps. but with the pendulum energetically. But it's part of a healing process. That's the way I see it, at least.
And I'm really strictly speaking for the Source 4, it's all about manifesting in your mind exactly what you want. The clearer you make something in your mind and you release it, and I'm not even talking about the Source 4 at this point. This is just manifestation 101. If you want to attract a relationship in your life, you have to live it in your mind, okay? But more importantly, you have to utilize your 5 senses when manifesting it. So in terms of attracting a man in your life, you envision exactly what you want, and you utilize your 5 senses. I'm not going to go into that, but in manifesting anything you want, and the clearer it is, the faster it'll come into fruition. And the coolest thing about manifesting is the universe, when it puts together the logic, if you will, to manifest it in your world, always makes it absolutely more perfect than what your human imagination can bring into form. Over to you, Donna.
Okay. So I've got Julia to comment. She says, I want a man in my life. I want to date. I want to have that someone special. I have not been on a date in 10 years or more. I was thrilled when Peter said 12 days. I was on cloud 9, so expectant. I am ready.
Well, if you were ready, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, with Erich's suggestions, the toothbrush actually really sounds interesting. But again, what was her name?
Julia.
Julio?
Julia.
Oh, Julia, sorry. Julia, you got to get in your mind exactly what you want. General terms like I want a man in my life, I want a really good relationship, aren't going to manifest it. Clarity, crystal clarity in your mind manifests exactly what you want, and the faster you'll get it. And the trick into that is utilizing your 5 senses.
Ooh, Julia, what does he look like? What does he feel like? Then I'll stop there.
Inquiring minds want to know, right, Donna?
I know. What does he look like, Julia? We all want to know. What does he feel like? Does he got muscles? What does he look like?
Oh, God, I'm going to throw up.
Get in there, Julia. Get in there and feel that vibration. Okay. And have some fun.
I can interject here for a second. It's interesting. I have a different philosophy. I'm more into fuzzy logic. I feel like the universe knows better than me, like what I want or what I need. Maybe not even what I want, but what I need. Like I feel like if I got everything I wanted, if I could imagine it perfectly, I'd probably be in big trouble. It's like sometimes I think I get surprised by the way things work out, and a lot of times it's not the way I expected it to go. So my philosophy is a little different. I don't do manifestation work that way. I more open the channels and then allow things to come in, and then I trust that I guess just the way that I roll is that I just trust that this process is positive and that it's forwarding my personal evolution. And so I just sort of embrace that idea, and like I said, I'll do things like with self-healing, and I'll take important steps. Like I know, like I'm married to my soulmate. She's my twin flame, actually. And the way I found her was a pretty amazing story. Like I was, before I met her, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, working this job. I won all these awards, and then they laid off the entire staff. So I decided to move to California and follow my dream of not even sure exactly what it was going to be at that point. I wasn't sure I was going to be a healer. Just wanted to be spiritual and follow my path. So I literally moved in. I lived in a group house because housing is very difficult to find in San Francisco. So I literally moved into the house with the woman who was my twin flame. Now I could not have planned that. There was no way. But I knew that I wanted to be in a relationship again because I had been married before and I had been divorced. And I knew that I had to do my own personal work. So I really had to be brave and to take a step that I just was not logical, not rational at all, and really required a lot of courage and me really stepping up to like who is Erich Hunter? You know, like what is he doing with his life? I really had to own it. And when I did that, it created the circumstance that allowed me to meet this person who I love very dearly. So it's a little different take on what, you know, this whole process, but I just thought I would throw it out there just to, you know, just to advocate a slightly different position. Not to say that the other view is wrong by any means, but just it's just a little different, my view of it. But
whatever works for you works for you.
yeah, no, hey, totally. Hey, consciousness, like you said, is the awareness of everything and the rejection of nothing. So there's a million different ways to do this stuff. There's no, you know, whatever is working for you, you know, psychically, powerfully, energetically.
Absolutely, and you know, and it sounds like for both of you, you guys both gave her suggestions, and so that's the suggestions is that energy moving. So, boom! I think it all works together. You bet. Okay, I don't have any more questions in the chat just yet.
Do we want to do a healing at some point?
Yeah. I'd like you, actually, I was just going to bring that up in a minute. I'd like you to do a group healing. We'll leave my stuff out of it. I just want you to focus on it.
Okay, thank you. Would you like me to begin that now?
Actually, in 3 minutes, 31 seconds.
Okay.
It's all you. You can do it now.
Okay. All right. So this will be fun. And what I'll do is I'll walk you through the steps of a distance group healing. Now I've never done this on for an audience before, so I'll show the steps and we can do it. All right. So whenever I do a distance healing, I make it easier for myself to connect by using a card. Now, I really don't need a card, to be honest with you, because I can psychically connect with all these energies. But, you know, I always recommend, and I still use it a lot, it's like a kind of a crutch just to make sure. I usually make a card. So what I do on the card is I write down the name of the person who I'm going to be helping. So in this case, though, we're going to be doing a group healing with lots of people. So I'm going to write here a statement that will be more relevant to that. So I'm going to write down, let's see, I'm going to write down group energies. Group energies of all the viewers. Of the show. All right, so I just write it on the card, just wrote a statement on the card, and now I'm going to connect to the card. So I just hold the card in my hand, and then just silently I'll say to myself the name of the person who I'm trying to connect to. In this case, it's the whole group. And I'll just do it 3 times. So group energies of all the viewers, group energies of all the viewers, group energies of all the viewers. Okay. So now this card is connected, and I can work directly on the card. So the first thing I want to do is I want to increase the ability of everyone to receive. Because if you're closed off and you're not able to receive, then this healing will just bounce right off you or not be very effective. So I'll just hold the card, then I'll hold my pendulum over the card, and I'll say, increase the ability of everyone in this group to receive to the highest levels possible. Everyone listening right now, increase their ability to receive for their highest good to the highest levels possible. But there's a lot of energy here. The pendulum's really spinning around. Now, obviously, I prayed earlier, so I don't need to do that again. I know that positive intentions are surrounding me, positive forces. And my intention for this healing, the goal of it, is to do a successful group healing so that everyone listening to this program will have an energetic shift which will benefit them for the highest good for themselves and for everyone else who's concerned with them under grace and in perfect ways. And I just let this pendulum spin around. It's just doing its thing. Okay. Now, next step I'll do in a healing is I want to raise the vitality level. Because if your vitality is low, you're not going to be feeling very well. So I'm going to raise the vitality level of everyone listening to this call, to the whole group, to the highest levels possible. for their good and their well-being. Sometimes I say raise the vitality level to 1,000%. It's kind of, obviously not a real number, but just to exaggerate it, to really give a surplus of energy in their auric fields to help it so it can percolate down. Okay, so it finished. So after you have increased the ability to receive, raise their vitality, you also want to increase the will to live. You could have great vitality, but if your will to live is low, you might, commit suicide. So that's a very important step. I always do with healing. So increase the will to live of every cell, tissue, and organ of every person listening right now to this show to the highest levels possible for their health and well-being, under grace and in perfect ways. Okay, so it balanced out. Now I'm going to throw some jargon at y'all, and it's the term radioaesthetic color. And basically, it's a term that Pendulum, the Pendulum guys in France came up with. It's kind of complicated, but basically, it's frequencies that the human body produces and the pendulum produces. And for ideal health, the radioaesthetic color, and radius is kind of like radioactivity, radius of a circle, and aesthetic is sensing. So the energy is blue. That signifies health and well-being. So what I'm going to say here is that change the radioaesthetic color of every cell, organ, and tissue of every person listening to this show or watching this show to the radioaesthetic color of blue. And just don't mind the jargon. Just play along with me a little bit here. I have a complete explanation of radioaesthetic colors in my book, but it would take a long time to go into that, so we're just going to do it. Okay. Now, those are just a few basic things, and now normally what I do after this point in healing is I go into specific things like that the person has requested, and I work specifically on that. So let me tap in here and kind of see if anything comes up in the field that I can work on. All right, well, a lot of people are watching this show because they want healing. They want to heal. They want to find a way to be better. So let's try removing any blocks to healing. So please remove any blocks that the listeners of this show may have to their own healing or the healings of others that they love for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned. Anything comes up. Okay, let it go there. All right, but now since I removed something, I want to add something back, because otherwise I'm going to kind of leave a gaping hole in the auras. So what I'll say now is let's add in beneficial, positive energies that will enlighten them and to help everyone who's listening to this group program here, everyone who's on the call, on the YouTube channel, listening to this, let's help them to find this healing, this energy they need to help them to heal and to find what they need to do to heal. Under grace in perfect ways. I felt kind of a heaviness shift in when I did the removal. Still going. A lot of energy being moved here. Okay, I may try one more thing. Let's see if anything else comes in strongly. Donna and Peter, if you get anything strongly coming in, let me know. Anything that needs to be healed.
I'm just enjoying the light show.
Oh, okay, cool. It must be so much fun being clairvoyant. I can feel energy, but I can't really see it. I can sort of see auras and stuff, but not in like vivid detail, but I can feel it really clearly. All right, well, let's do a little bit of chakra healing. That's always good. All right, let's open all the chakras of the people who are listening to this show. Open all the chakras. Harmonize all the chakras. Balance all the chakras. Okay. removing the excess energies that are causing heaviness. I feel like a heaviness. So I want to remove some of these energies, make it lighter. Send these energies with divine love back to source or wherever they need to go for the highest good of all concerned. Okay, now I want to kind of close it out with a process I have called the stages of healing. So let's take everyone who's listening to this call, me included, Peter and Donna, let's take it all through the stages of healing to get to the stage of love. All right, so finally, the last step I want to do is I want to surrender this group healing over to the divine, and that whatever is meant to happen will happen for the highest good of myself and all concerned. I surrender this, I'm done. All right, I blow on the card at the end and 3 times, and I just separate myself and I forget about it. Go have a beer or something. It's like I'm done.
And so it is.
That's
Yay.
the important step at the end. You got to just separate from it, or else it's connected to you and it sucks your energy and it lingers, and you just forget about it and it's all good. I trust the process. The fact that I was called to do it means that there was a reason. I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to do this. Someone's benefiting. I don't need to know if they benefited. I don't need to know how they benefited, but I trust that it worked, and I just leave it at that.
So there you go, Julia. But I'm gonna say something, Eric, because you know you and we got to talk last week.
Yes.
And meet before you came on the show. I got to meet you and we talked and yada yada yada. So you did a distant healing on my daughter Cassandra.
Yeah. Because
her rheumatoid arthritis has really been acting up while she's in Costa Rica, and it's cold and damp, and she's having lots of issues. So you and I talked, and then I asked her how she was feeling like a few days later, and she's like, I feel so much better.
Cool.
And she's not having her joints her fingers aren't locked up, and it's still cold and damp in Costa Rica. So I just wanted to let you know that. She's feeling much better. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. That's fun. It's awesome, and it brings up an important point I'd like to share. And I love it when I get positive feedback, but at the same time, I really have worked very hard to distance myself from getting results. And I really have noticed that is a big trap. That I used to fall into all the time, and a lot of healers do. So I'm kind of want to say it because obviously the reason I'm doing this work and Peter's doing this work and you're involved is we want to help people, and we love it when we are successful. But there are so many things that can go on. We could play a role, and we could like in that last case where the person didn't meet the man in 12 days. But we don't know what role the Aquaware actually played in making that a possibility. We don't really know. But we were called. There was a role that was called. We were called to do a role, and then we do it. And we don't really understand every piece that's moving. So I encourage healers who are listening to this call, really try to let go when you're done with the healing, and don't become obsessed with getting a positive result. Just really have faith that you did the process and that you felt sincere during the healing and you did your best part, or whatever your process is, but just trust that it worked. But I am very happy to hear that, and I'm honored that you allowed me to do that work for your daughter. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I have to respectively disagree with you on that whole spiel, Eric. I am completely results oriented, and the first time I actually helped change somebody's life was a drug unlike anything I've ever felt, and that feeling has propelled me over the last 11 years to develop different products and strategies to continue helping. Now, I understand yourself wanting to separate when the work is done, and I very much do that, but I always keep an ear to the ground for the results, because the results in my reality help me gauge what direction I need to tweak or go or change, okay? I don't read anybody else's information out there. I've always kept myself very ignorant to all the modalities that are out there when it comes to anything I do. I never, ever classify myself as anything. I am an unlimited being with unlimited potential, and I can do anything and anything I want to do in the time. And, you know, that was my thought process for a long time. And and then I had a very humbling experience several years ago, and I really understood that I'm nothing, and I'm just the conduit by which the great work is done. And by letting that part of myself go, really increased the technology and everything I was doing. But I am 150% results oriented. I have to be, because when someone comes back to me and says, holy blankety blank, you changed this and it's all better. You can call it what you want. It might be my ego. I don't care. I want that feedback, and I want people to read about that feedback, because that is a way to project this stuff, into the consciousness grid, if you will. And in my opinion, it helps heal everything that much faster, or change that person's reality. So I get very invigorated by feedback.
Oh yeah, no, I don't take me wrong. I love feedback, and I'm basically on the same page with you. Like, what I'm saying is, to help me be a clear conduit, I don't get invested in results. Like, let's say I do a healing and then the person doesn't have the exact effect that they wanted. Rather than me being hard on myself and saying, oh, I suck and it didn't work or whatever, I just say, I did what I could, and I played some role in this person's healing. It may not have been the ultimate result that they were seeking, but I trust that I did my part. But now, at the same time, like you said, like, we want to relieve suffering, and we want people to get better. So I wouldn't be doing this work if it didn't work. If people weren't getting better, I would hang up my hat and I would stop doing it. So
Or you would change your techniques and refine your technology.
Right. No, exactly. Right. So, but what I was trying to get there is kind of a subtle point that I think is important, is that, like, if you get too hung up in getting results, like, in my mind, it can actually really limit the power of what you're doing, because your ego is so involved that it can kind of dampen the energetic effect and put pressure on the people to get better when they may not be exactly ready. 'Cause, like, I've had a lot of cases where, like, I'll do a healing, and then, like, it takes a couple of days for it to kick in, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, the person gets better, and they're like, wow. But if I just contacted them immediately after the healing and said, are you better now? Are you better? Are you better? They would be like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it yet. Then, they might doubt that the healing even worked. So, like, I do definitely listen, though. When people give me feedback, like, I want to hear that, and I constantly am soliciting feedback from people. And I will try to tweak things and do things differently and take different approaches, and every circumstance is different. But yeah, I think we're actually more similar than you realize. I was kind of reading between the lines of what you're saying. I think we're actually pretty much on the same page. It's just sort of a different, slightly different full emphasis of sorts that makes it seem like we're different, but we're not really that different.
So, Eric, we're out of time, but can you let people know how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is on my website. So it's erichhunter.com. But my name is spelled E-R-I-C-H and then H-U-N-T-E-R. And on the website, I have a lot of information about myself. I've got information about my new book, yay! Which is available on Amazon.com. And I have information about my courses that I'm teaching. I also have the ability to contact me for healing, and I also have links to my YouTube channel where I have lots of free videos to teach people how to do pendulum healing for free. The other way to get me is on Facebook, so you can type in my name, Erich Hunter, and you'll get me that way. And I'm always talking with people on Facebook, either in my groups, like the Pendulum Helioradiesthesia group, or on just my personal Facebook page, and I love to hear from people. Yeah, and so those are two great ways you can get in touch with me and reach me.
Awesome. Eric, it was a really...
Hey.
You had to do that, didn't you, Donna?
I did. I did.
It was really cool having you on the show, man. A lot of good
Thank you.
information.
I really
Really
appreciate the
good stuff.
opportunity.
Donna?
Yes. So again, thanks, Eric, and of course, folks, his name is right there under his picture. You can see it, erichhunter.com. So please stick with us next week. Stick with us next week. We have a mystery guest, and all I can say is that come prepared to be, I guess, opened up, mind blown, some different way of thinking. So it's a mystery guest. Can't say a lot about this guest. So until she comes on, we'll see you next Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Join us. Please get in the chat with us. We are going to have an incredible, lively discussion on Sunday, as we do every Sunday. So we'll see you next Sunday on the MDM show. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Eric.
Welcome. Bye.
Thank you,
Good night.
Donna.
Good night.